Max from Team Logic IT here. I wanted to tell you a little bit about how we do business at Team Logic IT. And I really break things down into four main areas. And what I have here is the wheel of letters that really describes what those four areas are. We talk about how important it is to not have downtime, zero downtime. Every second counts in everything that we do, and the more time that you're down, the less work that you get done, and the less productivity that you have. The other important thing is access seamlessly, being able to access your stuff when you need it, where you need it, on the internet most often, but certainly on your computer as well. You want to have peace of mind that you're secure, and that's what we're all about when we think about cybersecurity and think about all the things that are out there in the way of threats. And then the fourth pillar of our business is really understanding how to do business with us in an efficient way. So we want you to not feel like it's difficult to do business with us. And so that's where these four sections of the wheel came up with. I put them into acronyms. TLAs, I call them, 3-letter acronyms. So we've got a few 3-letter acronyms and a few 4-letter acronyms. And so I thought I'd give a spin, and then we can talk a little bit about each of these topics individually. So the wheel of letters stops at MSSP. MSSP stands for Managed Security Services Provider. It used to be that we were in the business of managed services, and before that we were in the business of fixing broken things. Today we're in the business of managing the security and the services at the same time. So when a company comes to you and says, we want to manage your computers, it's not only important that we provide you an outlet for support when you have questions, when you need things and need answers to questions, but we also need to provide a level of protection, and that level of protection continues to get more and more. So managed security service provider is a new way of thinking of managed services, but frankly it's the way that we always have done business here at Team Logic IT, and the number one concern that we have is security and keeping you safe. Domain naming service is an address book. So when you enter the address 192.168.1.1, that's a bunch of garbledygook for all of us that don't deal with tech every day. When you enter 192.168.1.1, the internet, the domain naming service, is going out to an address book and figuring out that is teamlogicit.com. That's not really what the address of teamlogicit.com is, and that's not really a public address that you would normally go to. But if you go to your public IP address, is connecting that public IP address to the name that you're familiar with. Think about how mail is routed. Somebody sends you an email, it has to go to an IP address. So when you go to the IP address through the internet, it goes to a domain, and then it shows up in the internet in your mailbox. So this DNS idea is really all about being able to access the information that you need. Sometimes you get into situations where you're blocked from access, and this is just one way to think about the concept of seamless access wherever you are, whenever you need it. And that's all happening in the magic of the internet by converting those numbers, those addresses, into names and domains that we can access every day. BDR, Business and Disaster Recovery, Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery, BCDR is sometimes what that's called. Knowing that you can be up and running and always be running and always have access to your data is really important. How do we do that? We can't guarantee that the hackers aren't going to get to you, but we certainly can guarantee that recovery point will happen as quickly as possible. So oftentimes we're consulting with customers and defining for them what is the recovery point objective, meaning how long can you live without data, and what is the recovery point data, the recovery point objective, what is the amount of data that you need to run your business at a minimum. What data could you live without for a short period of time? And that tells us what we need to work on and what we need to focus on in the case of a disaster where you've lost some data. The other side of it is the recovery point or recovery time objective. So recovery point objective, recovery time objective. That's the amount of time that you can live without that data. So how quickly do we need to get you back up and running? Depending on the answers to those questions, that's how you manage your backups. That's how you manage the data access that you have. So wherever you put it on the server, wherever you put it on your computer, if you have it backed up, it's readily accessible. You can get back up and running if something disastrous happens. Or, for example, you might have a situation where an environmental thing happens within your organization or within your area of business. We had a customer who had a sensor that sensed temperature, and they were getting alerts and alarms that said the temperature was going up. And so that was a red flag to say, gosh, we better take care of this because evidently there's some fan or something that's not working. And it got to a point where the server performance was being degraded. It wasn't performing at the level that it was supposed to. And ultimately, they ended up switching the server from that local box to a cloud location that was serving as the backup. They were able to go from local to cloud. Well, the reason why the temperature in that room was going up is because things were on fire in there. And so as a result of that fire, that device was completely destroyed. All of the data that was on that device was completely destroyed because of that fire. But because they had the cloud backup and they could switch to operate within that cloud backup, nobody even knew that there was an issue with the server. So that kind of thing, when you talk about business continuity and disaster recovery, that's what we're talking about. Keeping your data safe, keeping your data secure, but also making it accessible in the case of a disaster. I'm Max from TeamLogic IT, and that's a little bit of information about why data is so important. Hi, I'm Max from TeamLogic IT, your technology advisor. We've spun the wheel and we've landed on S. And you've heard of, perhaps you haven't, but many people have heard of software as a service. SaaS. Some people buy infrastructure as a service, or they might rent a server and use that on a month-to-month basis. Some people will use unified communication as a service, so they'll have their telephone and their internet connected together and they pay one monthly fee for that unified communication as a service. Sometimes they have the whole package, the computer and the service and the internet and all of the tools that you need as a monthly service. And companies like that idea because it takes the capital expense off of the books, makes it more accessible for an end user to have more modern technology if they can do something as a service. So when we say XaaS, that's just an example of how we go about doing business with our customers. We want to make it easy. So if you want to pay one monthly fee to cover all of your technology, we can put all of that under the umbrella of X. It can be the infrastructure, it can be the computer, device as a service, it can be the software as a service, it can be the unified communication as a service, or it can be the whole thing as a service. So you could buy managed services as a service, as you do, but it includes all the hardware and software and all the things that you need to run. Think of TeamLogic IT as an easy one to do business with. We can customize it to make it work for you, and we look forward to the opportunity to figure all that out with you. I'm Max from TeamLogic IT and thefishingreport.net. Thanks for tuning in today.